This virus is leaving nothing and no one untouched. Regardless of your class, your age, your geographical location, your race, we just see this virus really exposing us to this fact that we all are much more vulnerable than we thought. How are you doing with an increasing awareness of your own weakness and fragility? You know, if what the news says is right, then the next 2 weeks are going to be harder and not easier for us as a country. Meaning either us or somebody we love is going to be affected in regards to their health. They could potentially get the virus. Someone we know or ourselves even might get a pay cut or lose a job. It's possible that we start wrestling with an increasing feeling of isolation and that social distancing really starts to hurt our relationships. Or maybe at minimum, we just start going crazy because you go, I wasn't made to be a homeschool mom. But either way, we're gonna be stripped, really, increasingly so, of any perceived control that we have. You know, I think we do everything we can in our life to try to be strong and to create security in our life. Recently, I got invited to participate in a long jump competition. And I was like, all right, something to do right now. So I decided to do it. And I wanted to win and to prove my strength. And so I kept trying and kept trying. And my wife said, Will, baby, you're going to hurt yourself. And I was like, nah, I got this, you know. And one of those jumps, I jumped as high as I could. Turns out I'm not a long jumper. Put my foot down early, start tumbling forward, hit a root with my hip and bruised myself so much so that I couldn't even sleep that night. And I woke up the next day from terrible sleep and thought to myself, Will, not only are you weak and getting old, but you also losing your mind a little bit. 5 years from now, you would have broken something. I was like, man, I'm way weaker than I think I am. Isn't that true for us? We're way weaker than we think we are. This virus, what it's exposing is that all of our perceived control is just a house of cards that an invisible enemy can come in and just demolish and tear down. How are you doing with an increased understanding of your weakness? You know, as the people of God, as people start suffering, us personally and others, there's some understanding that God, I believe, desires for us to have and to understand and to take hold of in this time. And I want to read you something from Hebrews chapter 12. The writer says this, endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? They disciplined us, parents, for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we might share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Y'all, this is what the theology of the scriptures teach us, is that in our weakness and in pain and insecurity, God is present and he is working. Pain is not pointless for the people of God. That's what the scriptures teach. This is a beautiful truth for us to hold on to. You know, the world has a taste of that understanding that even right now, God can be doing some stuff for good. You know, business philosophies are that with failure comes future success. The hip hop artists say, make your L's lessons, not losses. So there's an understanding of that, but the Bible goes one big step further and says this, that we have a God who is a father, and he is working behind the scenes for the people of God to teach them, to equip them, to make them something they would never be if God had not been working in pain. Here's the comfort for us right now, is that as we're being exposed, what it allows is the hand of God to come closer on us and start to comfort us and to beat us and to make us something that we wouldn't be before, to reach into our heart and get it to beat differently, y'all. So it means this, we should not despise We can be angry and frustrated, but we shouldn't despise. Instead, we should look for what God is doing in us and ask him, say, Father, what are you doing? What do you want to teach me? What do you want to give me? And here's what I know he wants to give you more than anything else. He wants to give it to you as the people of God, but he wants to give it to the world through us. And this is what we see in Hebrews 2. It says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who's ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest, here, listen to this, who is unable to empathize with our weakness, but we have one who's been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he didn't sin. Let us then approach God's throne with grace and confidence so that we might receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. It says this, listen, we don't suffer alone. Jesus is one who suffered. Jesus is one who can empathize with us in our weakness, y'all. That maybe in this time more than anything else, Jesus just wants to show us that he's enough, that he's present, that his presence is good enough for us and better than any of the fake securities that we can develop. And here's the last challenge I want to give us. We, when people are wrestling in this world with the same things, with suffering and hardship and difficulty, we don't have to have the right answers. We just have to be present and to show them that God is with us and God can be with them. And even in the middle of hardship, even in the middle of pain, God is worthy. He is enough. He is good. He is glorious. And so we need to be present with them the way that God is present with us in this time. So taking ground actually looks like resting with God.